What's up, everyone? This is the Osmo.com NHL Hit the Ice show. Uh, we have 9 games to talk about for this main slate, and I didn't mute the video. All right, there we go. Um, 9 games to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about last night. If you're new to NHL DFS, you got a taste of what it's like to be, hopefully on the right side, but a lot of you, it sounds like, were on the wrong side of the Dubnyk meltdown. So 4-1 lead, I think, for the Wild, and he's been shaky on and off throughout the season, so it wasn't that surprising. But yep, that's NHL DFS for you. Goalies can swing it, as you saw with McElhinney and Halak. The win's huge, so you guys got a pretty good taste of the tilt that is NHL DFS sometimes. And I'm sure some of you benefited from that, so it's not all bad. That's why I like to MME this year for my health, mental health. It's good to have exposure to different teams. Because, man, if you had one lineup or two lineups and they both had Dubnyk, that one hurt, I'm sure. Yeah, good morning. I see the chat's pretty active already. Or good afternoon. I guess it's afternoon for me. 12:10 here. Morning still for some of you West Coasters. This slate looks... Well, first of all, the contests, shout out to DK. The contests are really good. I really like what they've done these last 2 days. A little bit of everything. They've got the $40. I mean, I'm not a big fan of that tournament when it's the only option, but as an option, I think it's $6K up top. That's pretty cool. And then we've got the $10, which is what I'm going to be playing for the most part. 150 max, which is really cool. So yeah, everything's... They've got a $400 too with 20K up top. So for you NBA guys, that doesn't sound like anything, but for NHL, that's a pretty big deal. And everything, I think almost everything, if not everything, filled yesterday. So that was good. Everyone likes overlay, but long term, you need to show the sites that we can fill these things. So it was good to see, and hopefully, yeah. So where you said thought that they could have expanded the 10, yeah, they probably could. The 5, I mean, that thing charged hard at the end, and it did end up filling, very close to it. So I was excited to see that. I thought maybe at the $5 price point they wouldn't get enough entries in, but it did. Who downvoted some NBA degenerate? Yeah, probably someone who played Dubnyk, because I said I was pretty heavy on Dubnyk. I was also heavy on McElhinney and Halak too. So 2 out of the 3 chalk goalies worked out. The one did not, and he absolutely burned you. So can't hate on the downvote. It's understandable. Like if that was your first experience playing NHL DFS and you're just sitting pretty and all of a sudden your goalie gives up 4, and it's not like he saw a ton of volume either, so he couldn't even have salvaged it with the win. You were pretty much done as soon as they went into OT. Yeah, I mean, Aaron, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the RG rankings. They can be a little bit misleading. But I refuse to play Dubnyk anymore. Burn me when it counts repeatedly. Yeah, I've been on the wrong side of Dubnyk quite a bit. He always grades out well for me, and he repeatedly does really dumb stuff with the puck. I thought the same thing. Yeah, first time. Yeah, that's really tough if that was your first experience. So hopefully you guys survived it. Hopefully you are not bankrupt and just completely done with NHL DFS, and you're willing to give it another try. And I don't know. I mean, feel free to say how you did in chat. I think someone said up here, that they did pretty well. So hopefully a few of you guys, or most of you guys, did well, and you did have a good experience playing, whether it's your first time or if you dabble or whatever. Took down the $3.20 max. Miles, nice. That's really cool. Turned $5 into $12. Never played NHL DFS. That's pretty good. Why don't Uh, Wait, I don't know what you mean, Aaron. Um, it's a lot of it's volume based, I think. Kick it cruncher to give me one of every team's main lines. Aaron, say more about that. Maybe we could go through on screen and I can show you how to set up team stacks. Stat adjustment killed my profit. Oh, okay. Once you figure out goalie, the rest is easy. Yeah, if you could figure out goalie, I mean, you'd crush every night because you see the it's already a varied sport somewhat. I think it's more predictable than people give it credit for compared to like baseball. But yeah, it's similar to pitching in baseball where you can end up with a guy with -5 and the highest scoring player might be, 40. So same thing. Yeah, that's fine. They can downvote. Goalies are tough to pick. Yeah. How many one-offs are too many in one lineup? I try to avoid one-offs for forwards. Like I said yesterday, if you watched yesterday, I do really like to full even strength stack. When I'm hand building, like let's say I was doing it for the early slate, and you've got extra salary left over if you were doing something like this, and you let's say Larkin Nyquist, that's been a really awesome combo, and you wanted to one-off I don't even know, like Kessel because he's cheap. I think that's okay to do even on bigger slates, but I try to get at least two. I try to get two full stacks, and you can do that really easy with Cruncher or even with hand building. But correlation over filling up every last dollar of your salary, which is a little bit different in NBA DFS, where in NBA you're probably gonna at most leave a few $100s on the table because it's just a lot more predictable. Whereas here you can make competitive lineups in NHL DFS, especially when you're MMEing, that leave 1K, 2K on the table, and those sometimes end up binking early at 1 p.m. Central. No, the early already locked. That's why I came on after, just so people got their lineups in and then hopefully tuned into this. And yeah. So here you guys are. Are you doing the same MLB content as last year? Yes, I think so. I think that's the plan. I would assume it's going to be a lot of me and Josh in the morning. I think that worked out pretty well last year for MLB. I mean, I like doing it. I know we heard some good feedback, and Josh obviously is the best. His spreadsheets, so there will be some good stuff, I'm sure. So don't you worry about it. Let's see. We've got a question from Premium Slack. Well, let me do this one. This may be a silly question for the regular NHL players, but how do you figure out the really cheap punts? That's what I was having the biggest issue with. Again, I try to just correlate, but cheap defenseman punts, maybe you're just looking for block shots. You can look at how many shots a guy blocks per 60, and you can look at the projected amount of shots the team against him is going to see, and then you might get a guy that is 3K but has a chance to block 3 or 4 or 5 shots, which can help you reach value. Because a lot of the times, especially on DraftKings, there's not going to be egregiously underpriced players. So it's tough. But there are some scenarios it requires a little bit of digging, I think. But you can always go on Fantasy Cruncher and upload projections. If you use my projections, if you have access to them, you can upload them and see who my projections like as the best value. So just run a few lineups in Fantasy Cruncher and see who's coming up repeatedly. That's probably a decent indication of who I think is a pretty good value. NHL playoffs and MLB April are the best times in DFS. I agree. Arizona, I think they'll be pretty low owned. I agree with that. We'll go through each game, I think, in just a second. I'm one of the new ones that are enjoying this while B-ball is out. Read your article. Would it be wise to take two of the stacks you recommended and playing both of them? It was a New York Islanders stack and Winnipeg stack. Yeah, I think you can absolutely do it if they fit. You might be sacrificing some defensemen there when you're playing Winnipeg 1 in a 15K stack, but yeah, you can make that work for sure. I write them up for a reason. Sometimes they're chalky, sometimes they're less chalky, but those are kind of the first few stacks that I see when I go through the slate for the first time in the morning. So those are the ones that get written up. And then, I start tweaking projections and things may change a little bit, but and you might get lines changing, like Vegas 2 might be changing. So I'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, those are some stacks that I definitely like for MME or even single entry. Lastly, do you normally play a stack of goalies and defenders, same team? No idea how this works, but it's fun. Yeah, it's definitely fun. You're right on that. You can correlate goalie. If you're using Fantasy Cruncher, you can make a rule, and you could say use one goalie with at least one player from the same team. Or if you want to use defenders with your stack, you can say use one D with at least one or two or three players, 3 centers and wings from the same team or the same power play unit. Power play unit's difficult if you're trying to stack defensemen. So it's a little bit tricky, but just play around in Fantasy Cruncher if you have it. If not, I generally think it's a good strategy to stack goalies and defenders. And it's not just me. I'm not saying anything outrageous. A lot of the top players, Testosterone, Drewby from Daily Roto, Tom, Eddie, like these are some guys that I've studied a little bit, and Alex, of course, Osimo. These are guys that all implement those kind of strategies. So do what the top guys are doing, and you're probably going to be okay. Go on Fantasy Cruncher Rewind and see if you can replicate some of the lineups or get some big scores on last night's slate. Yeah, no problem. All right. Looks like we got a decent crowd in here. EMAC profited in NHL last night. EMAC, of course, profiting, just coming in and killing the game. I play Testosterone and Cash a lot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's not the best Cash player, but I don't really play Cash unless it's like a $5 double up that's not going to fill or something. Then I'll just throw a tournament lineup in there. All right. Do you avoid stacking a line that isn't on the same power play unit? No. Like if there's 2 guys on the top power play unit and the one guy doesn't play in the power play or plays in the second unit, no problem with that. Try to stay away from him. Testosterone? I mean, Testosterone is just a really awesome tournament player. I don't know about Cash. I don't know. I lost $2 last night, but plan to make 2K tonight. That's the spirit. I like that, Michael. I plan to do the same. I lost a little bit, but nothing too huge. Wasn't like 2 nights ago with the Sharks, but looking to bounce back tonight. I really like this $10. So hoping to take down the 20K. How do you feel about Yahoo NHL? I don't really play there at this point. I have tried it out. It's just an afterthought at this point. The tournaments aren't big enough. I don't know that I love the 2 goalies thing. I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea. Thought I was dead on my... Oh, yeah, Jason. Yeah, that's too bad. Both goalies were the play, right, for the guy. And he got the Halak shutout. But you had the Halak too, didn't you? How did that guy win? Didn't he have 4 duck skaters or 3 duck skaters? Or did he have Krug? I can't remember what you said, but... Yeah, I don't know how that guy pulled that off. $500 head-to-head on Showdown. That's pretty crazy. Oh, they've got plus minus on Yahoo. That's right. I liked that little wrinkle on FanDuel back when I first started playing. I thought that was okay. Because, it would just concentrate ownership more. Like, home favorites would be super chalky, and people wouldn't play road teams against them. Even when there was hard matching going on. And that's back when I wasn't even close to being a good player. But I still made money with the plus minus. So, like I set in Cruncher, line 1, 3 players, 5%, and got an error. We can go to that. Let's just... Oh, yeah. This is my Stacks article. Feel free to read that. I think I put it in chat. I'll put it in chat at the end, hopefully. If you want to set up Stacks in Cruncher... Oh, yeah, Okie Horn, you can definitely post questions in the premium chat if anybody's watching from there and you don't want to post in YouTube chat. That's fine. I got both pulled up here. All right, so you go to advanced options. You try to add the stack. So you did line 1, 3 players, 5% each. Well, the thing is, if you do 5% each, you're probably only going to get one lineup because there's not 20 teams here. So you got to increase this. Increase it to 10. Otherwise, you're not giving the crunch enough room to wiggle. So just try increasing that to 10 or 20. You can always stop the crunch. So, you could crunch 5 lineups, 4 lineups. And then you can press stop. If you don't like what's going on, you can delete stuff. And then you can calculate 5 more if you need to, So, I think, yeah. If you're ever getting errors, try just in general. Look at the rules tab, see if you have rules set up. The crunch is only going to give you what you tell it to or what you allow it to do. So delete rules. If you're getting error messages, check your groups, see if you've got anything in there. You can use more randomness. You could try that. You could change all players back to 100 because that could also be the issue. That was the issue you were probably having, Aaron. Going back to San Jose tonight. Probably. Yeah, I think so. I am MMEing, so there's a good chance that I play a lot of Sharks. Although I'm not really getting a ton just yet. We'll see. We will see. Where are we at here? All right, you guys want to go through these games quick? This game not on the slate. There's a showdown for this. I'm not going to worry about that one. All right. Does Alex have rankings out for the main slate? I don't know if he does. Let me check. He does not. All right, so we don't have rankings just yet, but maybe we'll get them in show, maybe not. I can still get the implied totals from elsewhere if you guys want to know those. We've got Toronto and Arizona, 3.4 implied total for Toronto, 2.6 for the Coyotes. Frederick Anderson going up against Darcy Kemper. These are not confirmed just yet. As far as line matching goes, probably going to see the step-on line go up against Tavares and Marner. It's always difficult with the Leafs. You don't know if they're going to consider Matthews the top line or Tavares the top line because it's Tavares and Marner, whereas it's usually Matthews. But Kapanen looks pretty awesome as of late. So it's tough to know what they're going to do. I don't know that Arizona's going to hard match here. Anyways, you'd like the line that goes up against the Cousins line for Toronto's sake. So just without factoring in line matching here, or like expected line matching, and maybe that's the way you should do it, is just avoid trying to guess who's going to match who. the Tavares line grades out as actually the better value. I just don't know that they're going to have the better matchup for most of the game. So that's kind of what I'm struggling here with. Right now, it's mostly Tavares in this game. And then I've got sprinkles of both the Stepan and the Cousins line. With the Stepan line, super cheap. Arizona's always really cheap. And Toronto does give up their fair share of shots and scoring chances. That being said, they do have a very, very good goalie in Frederik Andersen and 3 lines. So it's always tough with them. I almost always default to the Tavares line when I'm torn or unsure of things, just because if all else fails and they get there on the power play, you get 2 of the top power play guys in Tavares and Marner. And then Hyman's always on the ice for empty net situations. Now, you can't really count on that, but he is he's okay at 4,200 in the context of a stack. He's not a guy that I would necessarily intentionally leave off, like the Zach Kassian types. Although I think he got an assist last night, if I remember correctly. The Cousins line, like I said, pretty bad defensively. But they can generate offensively, and you get all 3 guys on the power play in some fashion. You can play Ekman-Larsson or Chychrun. Ekman-Larsson's price is kind of ridiculous, and he's still shooting quite a bit and playing a lot of minutes, so he's got to be one of your top values on defense tonight. There's really no doubt about that. I think a pretty good floor play. Toronto should be able to generate a lot of shots here at 5-on-5. Arizona's not a good 5-on-5 team, but they do have a good kill. So I don't know that this is just like the nut matchup for Toronto, even though they've got a really healthy road total here. Yeah, rest definitely matters, Brandon, but it's kind of already baked into, just like with NBA, it's kind of already baked into the Vegas lines. So I try to let them deal with that, and then I do have Vegas factored into my model. But in general, it doesn't hurt to have it doesn't hurt to be playing against a team on a road back-to-back or whatever. So it's definitely a nice bonus, like I mentioned with Edmonton in the Spotlight Stacks article. So they're on a road back-to-back. They're already a bad team, but just the road back-to-back, it's a tired team that's already bad defensively. Maybe they're more prone to take some penalties, and I don't have data to back that up, but that's just kind of a thing that tends to happen, and that could just be bias, but these are human beings, so you're just probably going to be more tired. Some guys might be more ready to play after getting up and playing last night. It depends. I would say in general, you definitely like to target teams that are on the back-to-back, though. All right. Who did I say on D? Ekman-Larsson, right here. I think he's one of the best values of the night at 3,800. And I think you're going to need value. Connaughton is another guy that I play sometimes at 2,900, so if you can't get up to Ekman-Larsson, if you can't get up to Chychrun, Connaughton at 2,900, he's a guy that when he's playing 18, 20 minutes, he can be valuable because he does attempt a lot of shots, and he will block shots as well. What's up, Bobby? Bobby Boom, the premium chat favorite, of course. Oh, we'll get to Stetcher. Don't you worry. He played 32 minutes last game. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Let's get some more viewers. We got a good crew in here. Whisk Cubby, thank you. Glad to see you're trying out NHL. NHL is my favorite, so glad to be a part of it. Glad to be a part of your life again. All right, so this one is probably good. I think I'm avoiding Morgan Rielly. Like I said, Arizona, very good penalty kill. And while the Leafs have a good power play, I'd rather not pay this price against a really good penalty kill for a guy in Rielly who he's not a Brent Burns where he will attempt 10 plus shots some games. He's more tied to the power play and assist equity and stuff like that. So I think you're fine kind of avoiding him tonight at that price. Gardner would be the better value, I think. St. Louis goalie news, I'm not sure. I'm not locked into that game. So check Votz's Twitter list if you want to. Detroit scored. Nice. Check Votz's Twitter list if you want to find out some late news on any games. Here, I will post that. Let me go find this. So he has 180 beats in this list right here. I'm going to post it in chat. Subscribe to that. Subscribe to that list. Pull up that list before lock, 30 minutes before lock, and react to any news. It's an edge for sure. There will be dead lineups because people just miss stuff. There will be guys that are 3 and 4% owned that aren't playing sometimes. So it's just don't have dead lineups. Yeah, Bertuzzi with the assist, right? So he was 5%. And, it's definitely even a bigger edge. So on these early slates, because there's not a morning skate, so you've got a half an hour to react or see if someone's in. So if someone's questionable and they're in, you're probably going to get them at half or a third of the ownership of what they would be if it was the main slate, where you're getting that news hours in advance. Yeah, I saw the Oilers got Sam Gagner. Whatever. They're just the worst. All right. Ottawa and Winnipeg. We've got Anders Nilsson going up against Laurent Brossoit. And we've got a Winnipeg team that's struggling a little bit as of late. They're not playing great offensively. That being said, this Winnipeg one line is fantastic. They're one of the best lines in the NHL, regardless of what the numbers say. They're very efficient with their chances. They play on the power play. All together on the top unit, Ottawa is bad at even strength. They allow a ton of shots, a little bit less high danger chances as of late, but still, I think they're going to be overmatched here. I think the Scheifele line is going to see a lot of time against Duchesne, and even if they go up against the Colin White line, it's still a very favorable matchup for Winnipeg one here. I'm expecting them to be the highest owned stack of the night. That's not going to deter me from them. You can make it work pretty easily. I've made it work. So whether they're 15 or 20 or 25% owned, I'm going to be around that spot. I don't often see super bad chalk in NHL DFS, and I don't think this is bad chalk. So there are other lines you can pivot to. There's one in particular I really like that you guys will probably be upset to hear. But there's certainly other options if you don't like it for single entry or 3 max. If you want to kind of avoid the field, that is fine. Just know that Winnipeg should project out as probably the best stack on the night in most people's models. Maybe with a couple exceptions. Tampa, who I am actually on. So we'll see. But we'll get to that game next, it looks like. The Senators side, first of all, I'm not a Winnipeg 2 fan. Their numbers are not very good. Laine looks lost. He's back in the top power play. When he gets going, maybe it's a breakout game for him. I mean, it would be the spot. I just think because of his price and because of Little's price and Roslovic, they're going to be a little bit popular. And a line that I don't think is good at 5-on-5 that's going to be popular, it's usually an avoid for me. I mean, if you like the matchup against Ottawa and you just want everyone, go ahead. But I don't think I will be getting there much, even as a secondary line. If I'm doing single entry, should I worry about chalk stacks or simply differentiate on my other stack? The latter part, I would differentiate. Don't fade the chalk just because you think it's going to be chalk. If you think it's the best play, you can play it. Just differentiate elsewhere. Take. Oh, by the way, Dustin Byfuglien is out for this game, so take Trouba, take Morrissey. Those guys are going to skate a ton with Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor at even strength. So if you take one of those guys, you can absolutely be different. Correlate your goalie. Take a lower owned stack with your second stack, or don't full stack on your other stack. Just don't just fade because it's chalk. Bryce says, I love Ottawa. I do like Ottawa here. That will be a surprise to no one. Ottawa is my team. No, they're not actually my team, but I do play them a lot. And especially this Whitestone Tkachuk line. I'm a little worried that they might see some time against this Winnipeg third line, which is really good offensively and defensively. Did you really, Steve? I think I saw the Winnipeg PP having slightly better metrics with Morrissey than with Byfuglien. Like the underlying stuff. Because I don't think they were, like results-wise, they weren't scoring without Byfuglien, but could have just been bad luck. Interesting. With Trouba, were they terrible? Trouba almost 6K, man. That's crazy. And they've also been swapping these two guys around. So I wouldn't go all in on one of these guys if you're playing a bunch of Winnipeg stacks. It's been Morrissey a lot of the time, but they've got Trouba listed there. They've swapped around in games. I wouldn't take a super heavy stand on these guys if you're four-manning with Winnipeg 1. I like Ottawa 2 here. Whitestone, Tkachuk, they've got good underlying numbers. They do get the results. Mark Stone is really awesome. Ottawa may or may not be shopping him around for whatever reason, but he's only 5,600, so I mean he'd be a guy considering cash. Winnipeg's allowing a lot of scoring chances as of late, and if they see this little Line A Roslovic line, that's even a better bonus. And they're just dirt cheap. They've been dirt cheap for a while, despite having good results and good fancy numbers. So I really like Ottawa too as a value. You can game stack. Just kind of a general rule for me, I don't force in game stacks. But if you get there organically, or if you're crunching and you get a bunch of lineups and you have Winnipeg 1, Ottawa 2, I think that's a pretty good combo if you're not correlating goalie, of course. Gensel, what did Gensel scored? Interesting. All right. Shabbat, I like at 6K. He's a guy I would prefer over Morgan Riley. Like I said, Winnipeg's had trouble defensively, and Shabbat's a guy who he's been a little bit inconsistent as of late. I'd like to see him getting these 23, 24, 25-minute games like he was seeing earlier in the year, and he has the last two. So that's good news for him. I kind of want to jump on him when people aren't really on him, and so this is going to be a spot that I'm going to do that when I don't get up to Brent Burns. So, shocker. Or Erik Karlsson, because Karlsson actually is expected to be in. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Winnipeg 1, Ottawa 2 for me there, to kind of sum it up. Montreal and Tampa, we have Carey Price and Andrei Vasilevsky. The Tampa total, 3.6. Montreal at about 2.4. Tampa has been my kryptonite all season. They recently switched around what they were doing with this line. They've been hard matching this line against opposing top lines. Last game or last couple of games, they've gone back to Point, Kucherov, and Yanni Gourde against opposing top competition. So that would probably put them on Deneau, Drouin, and Gallagher. And this line's been pretty bad defensively. The point line's not great defensively either, but I think you can reasonably play either of these sides. So point line, Tampa just has these games where they go nuts out of nowhere, and I usually miss out on them. I don't exactly know what to expect for ownership here, but Yanni Gourde is too cheap. playing with those guys at even strength, and then he gets PP2 time. That's not really important. Tampa's one of those teams that really rides their top unit. They just have a sick top unit, and their second guys don't get as much time. Yeah, I whiffed on them versus Dallas. Me too, right? So that one made me mad too, that I whiffed on them, because I ended up forcing some in, but I got to like 5% of Tampa, and that's kind of where they were. And it's like, why would I want to jump on this team when they're going to be chalk? When they don't project well? Like, why wouldn't I just force some in when they're not projecting very well and hope I can hit on them, like just a really good team that has this breakout game? Like, they are the kind of team that can just go off in perceived bad matchups. So that one kind of made me mad looking back on it. Like, I should have tried to be more over the field and just be over the field on this team when it's a big slate and they're kind of getting ignored because of a average or below average matchup. So just something to put in the back of my head, because I definitely whiffed on them as well. But the point line probably going to go up against Deneau, Drouin, and Gallagher. Like I said, I think that's a good matchup on both sides. And it's also a good matchup for the Stamkos line. So really the three lines I'm looking at here are the Deneau line. I think is going to be really low owned, and people don't like targeting against Tampa. I'm not really worried, especially when I know they're going to match up against Point and Kucherov, who haven't been all that great defensively. And then just Stamkos is just on fire right now, playing with two guys that are cheap. So it's hard not to like him as well. Or you could just go with the Tampa power play. That's usually a pretty good default if you're kind of stuck with what to do with them. If you can afford a combo of Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov, by all means. That has worked out quite a few times this year. And I'm trying to look up Montreal for the season. They're 11th in time shorthanded, so they take their fair share of penalties. They're under 80% for the season in penalty kill. So I don't know what the underlying numbers have looked like as of late, but for the season, the results generally have been a plus matchup for Montreal. Hedman's a guy, maybe he might be the reason. He's a guy that doesn't really grade out for me well in general this year. But 5,700, like I do prefer some guys around his range, so I don't see myself getting to a lot of Hedman here again. He is the top power play quarterback, but I've got about 5% of him right now out of 100 lineups. He's just the guy that's going to get left off on Tampa because you've got some expensive skaters that you want to play, especially if you're playing the point line, and he's a guy that would get left off for me even if I'm doing Tampa stacks. That's like fading Harden versus the Knicks. Tampa Bay, 26,627 goals last game. Yeah, I did fade. Yeah, like I said, boom. That one hurt a little bit. Just because I felt like a fish. It's not because I thought Tampa was going to go off and didn't play them. Palat took that spot back. Yep, do we have that here? Oh, no. So, okay, so you're saying Palat is on PP1 here, and then that would mean Miller would be PP2. So when that gets updated, if Daily Faceoff updates that, or if Fantasy Cruncher does, then this might look a little bit different if you guys go to make lineups on the lineup builder. All right. Next one, we got the Oilers and the Islanders. We got Mikko Koskinen and Robin Lehner. Cam Talbot was traded. Lehner, when Barry Trotz is your coach, you don't really get confirmed. But I would expect him to go. He's having a pretty good season here. It's definitely a winnable game for the Islanders, who, if no one's paid attention to hockey, like they've just completely been a different team this year. New coach, maybe a little bit of luck at the beginning. but they were the worst defensive team in the NHL last season. This year, they're pretty much the best, or top 3 so far. That doesn't really matter for DFS right now. If you want to play McDavid at low ownership, I get it. I don't think I want to here. Just the Isles have been so tough defensively. It's a road back-to-back. Not saying McDavid is ever out of play, but even in like 100 lineups, I don't even know that I got to 1 share of McDavid, and I didn't. And I don't see myself really getting there at lock. So that's a little bit scary. He's one of those guys that can break the slate, but when you're playing with Zach Kassian, and you're playing with a different line mate once every 4 shifts, like, it's just really tough at 7,500 against a good defensive team. Yeah, he's always in play. I'm just not playing him tonight. I don't plan on doing it. Price has been lights out. Yeah, he has been. He has been lights out. Boom, you're trolling. You're playing Tampa. Get out of here. NHL don't fade chalk in single entries if you believe it is the best play. Lots of variance still in a 9-gamer. There's always ways to differentiate. Don't just fade because you're worried about something being the chalk. They would, no one gets high enough where it's like an auto fade. Like, no one gets to 70% in the NHL. So if you think it's if you think it's bad chalk, then don't play it. But if you think it's good chalk and you can make good correlated lineups, then don't avoid, especially if you're multi-entering. This is my favorite line, one of my favorite values on the entire night. Lee, Nelson, Eberle. Pretty easy to see why. They're probably going to see a good amount of time against McDavid, Draisaitl, and Kassian, which is a great matchup. They're probably going to see a little bit of time against the Nugent-Hopkins, Lucic, Chason line. For anyone new-ish to the NHL, Lucic is possibly the worst skater in the NHL, possibly the worst contract in the NHL. Just very bad, very, very bad. The Oilers are very bad outside of McDavid. Kind of masks some of their problems. But this line's going to have a good even strength matchup regardless of who they go up against. Full power play correlation. Oilers have one of the worst kills in the NHL. We've got $3,800 Nick Leddy. Man, that price is... At least he's in range, I think, at that price. This would be an okay spot to play Nick Leddy. And I'm like not a Nick Leddy guy for DFS. But I think I'd probably be okay playing him with Isles 1. Watch the Oilers erupt. It's hockey, right? And it's McDavid, so you're never shocked when McDavid does really anything. The guy is just incredible. So if you want to play McDavid at low ownership, now would be the time to do it. Kunakl really skating? Yeah, okay, so kind of went over Leddy. I think Boychuk's actually an okay one-off play, as well as Pulak. Pulak is kind of my boy. He's one of those guys that doesn't play in the top power play, but he does shoot a lot. And he actually won me a tournament last Saturday it was, during the day slate. He's a guy who has like a goal and assist upside. And maybe he doesn't correlate to the best plays, the Barzals and the Isles 1 that well, but by himself, like he gets in these modes where he's just shooting the puck every time he gets it. And the Oilers are a good team to do that against. So I like it. I like Pulak. Boychuk has also been increasing his shot volume as of late. He doesn't get power play time at all, so that's going to be a guy that's super low owned if you're into that type of thing for 4,100. Yeah, so Kunakl, it's been... I don't know why they don't just put Beauvillier up with Barzal and Bailey. Beauvillier has had success there. And then he just had like a 2-goal game like last week. Like that line was working just fine. I don't understand. Tom Kuhnhackl? What are we doing there? So I guess Kuhnhackl makes the line cheap, but that's about as good of a thing as you can say about him. So he'd be a guy I'd maybe want to leave off of the Barzal stack. You could play Barzal by himself, or you can go Barzal instead of Brock Nelson if you think it's a good power play spot for the Islanders, or one of these wingers if you want to get different. And then do what you will with Nick Leddy. I usually miss out on the Nick Leddy ceiling games, which is about 2 assists and 2 shots on goal. I'd rather play a guy like Polak for 5,400 and take my chances there on a guy that can score goals or wants to score goals. You guys talking about NHL players' moms in chat. That's what we like to see. Clefbaum, Nurse, those would be very far-fetched options for me tonight. Like I said, I don't know how much success the Oilers are going to have at even strength. Nurse is, I guess if you're trying to correlate to McDavid, that in general, that's a smart thing to do. He'd be a guy I'd be okay playing. Clefbaum, he's just really not doing anything, man. The minutes are okay, but that's really the best I could say about him. Let's move it on to the next one. I feel like I'm going pretty slow here. Stars and the Carolina Hurricanes. Anton Khudobin expected to go. Bishop's out. Mrazek expected to go for the Hurricanes after they played last night against said Oilers. Carolina won. Full line goal right away. I mean, this line is incredible. The numbers, they just keep sustaining these really, really awesome numbers. And yeah, they got outshot. Edmonton outshot Carolina last night, but it's really fun to watch Carolina 1 skate. They're just so good at 5-on-5. It doesn't seem like it would be the best mix of players, but there's no way I avoid them tonight in 100 lineups. So Carolina 1 is my main option on the Carolina side. Walmart, Furland, both those guys are super cheap. I hate that price for Teravainen by himself. But in the context of a stack, I think this is an okay value line. On the Dallas side, we've got Ben Sagan and Radulov back together. I'm interested to see how much attention that draws kind of industry-wide. Because last year, or even earlier this year, when they were apart for a few games and they get right back together, everybody seems to jump on them. This isn't really the best spot. So I don't really know what to do. But at the same time, they're underpriced. Ben at 5,100 is kind of a joke. Sagan at 66 is underpriced, and then Radulov at 6,100 might be the most underpriced guy on the line. The problem is the matchup. And yes, Carolina just surrendered 40 shots last night, but that's because a lot of that was because Edmonton was chasing for especially the third period. So I'm not sure how much stock to put into that. Carolina played last night, but it was at home. I don't really know what to do with that. So underpriced, Dallas won for sure. Just not sure it's the the most high, the highest upside spot for them, because Carolina is a good 5-on-5 team in general. And then I think the Aho line might see a lot of time against Sagan, Ben, and Radulov. And if I'm playing one lineup, there's no way I end up on Dallas. So I'll say that. I'm playing 100 tonight, so if I end up with 5 or 7%, I think that's a pretty good range to be in, and hope I come in around the field. It's a line I love playing. They grade out super well for me as a value at this price, basically against whoever. But man, I'm really, really worried about this Aho line right now. Some value here on Dallas. Well, yeah, I mentioned that's the value. Dallas won. I don't want them as a chalky play though, and I think the people that use optimizers might fall into that trap a little bit. And I could be just dead wrong. I mean, they could be 5% tonight. So Klingberg is playing. There was some question as to whether or not he's playing. I think it was some personal thing going on, so it looks like he's going to play. He's the power play 1 guy if you want to stack up Dallas 1 and do a 4-man. Hiskinen's also another guy that I would consider at 4,400. On the Hurricane side, Dougie Hamilton again. For me, none of the Carolina defenders did anything crazy last night, but it would be Dougie. His price went down $100, so he's a guy that, again, I would play as a one-off. I would play with Carolina 1. I'd have no issue doing that. I think the shot volume is going to be okay here, despite Dallas slowing the pace down this year. All right, let's move it on. Columbus and Chicago. We have Sergei Bobrovsky expected to go up against Cam Ward. Ward is actually confirmed. Bobrovsky is not. That's pretty standard for Columbus here. The Blackhawks. I'm wearing my Blackhawks shirt unintentionally, I should say. I guess they're my team. However, I have missed the boat on them. I've really missed the boat on them. They've been winning games. Their power play has just been insanely good. So I'm going to pull up their February numbers. So that's a pretty small sample, but 25% in February. Let's see what they were in January, kind of when they started this run. They were at a 40% power play clip in January. Like, they're not a good team, first of all. They're not a good team. They do have a few good players. Kane, Taze is okay. Probably a little overrated. DeBrincat is awesome. But his price is gone way up. And you look at these numbers at 5-on-5 for these Blackhawks lines, and there's not much there that you really want to play. So that's why I've been off them. Power play matchups are always great, and they've had a stretch of really good ones, and that's why their power play is just gone nuts. But it's really hard to play players that are relying on power play scoring basically only. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, only power play, but $8K for Kane. I mean, it's fair based on what he's done. $6,400 for DeBrincat, $6,800 for Taze. I'd rather not pay that price almost ever for him. You just kind of add all this together. Kajula's price has come up a bit. Like, this is not a good line at 5-on-5. Defensively, they can generate okay, but defensively, really bad. So when they've run into some of these top lines, they've kind of gotten lucky. Guys have been committing penalties, and they've just ran really hot. So I think, again, I don't want to say I'm fading the Hawks. I'm not fading the Hawks. I'm going to have some Hawks. I'm just going to be way underweight on them once again. Specifically the Taze and Kane line. I think it's going to be popular again. You see a pretty decent total for Columbus here, or against Columbus here, 3.1. The Hawks have some major regression coming. If I could predict when the regression was coming and which game, like I said, I'd be filthy rich. It may not come in this game, but I'm going to be heavy on the Blue Jackets. So the Blue Jackets 1 is kind of my pivot to Winnipeg 1 if you want to go there. And Blue Jackets 1 is not going to go completely unowned or anything. They're not going to be 3% or probably not even 5%. But if they're 10 or under 10 as a whole, I think that's a huge win right here. I love Dubois, Panarin, and Atkinson when they're together. There's some uncertainty about lines, so of course confirm this. But the Jenner's out for this game. He didn't travel with the team, so Boone Jenner is going to be out. I hope it's not Wenberg that slots in between Foligno and Anderson. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, Foligno is going to play center. I saw this on Twitter yesterday. Let me see if I can find this tweet. Now that I'm thinking of this, Nick Foligno center. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So Foligno will move to center with Boone-Jenner out. Appears his wingers will be Duclair and Anderson. So I like that line. The problem with that line is simply this. Well, for DraftKings, and it's probably the same way over on FanDuel, Duclair's a left wing, Anderson's a wing, Foligno's also a wing. So you're going to have to get creative if you want to full stack them. I still really like that line as a value, and I'm going to try to sneak them in and just power play stack, get double centers on a few lineups. I think that line as a trio is going to be virtually unowned. Foligno and Anderson might have some ownership, but someone's going to get left off because of the three wings and because a lot of times people just leave people off for whatever reason. So Blue Jackets would be the chalk on second line. No, they won't be chalk. Not the second line, at least. The top line could see some ownership. Will see some ownership from me, especially. CBJ2 will not be chalky. Jackets 1 chalk? I don't know about that. I think Winnipeg 1 is going to be pretty decently higher than them. Yeah, boom. Coming right up. So Columbus 1, I think, is a good way to differentiate a little bit. Like I said, they're not going to go unowned. If they're even in the teens, I think it's a pretty good pivot away from Winnipeg 1, even in like single entry stuff. So Winnipeg 1 is probably the best option, but they're not the only option. And Columbus 1 is going to be where I go to on my non-Winnipeg lineups very often. Again, going to be under the field on Tays and Kane for the 55th time in a row. Probably not going to have much of this Strome to Brinkat line. And it's worrisome because Columbus hasn't been all that great as of late. They've had some goalie issues at times this year. So it's a little bit worrisome. I just think for the ownership that they keep getting and it being not sustainable, I want to be off. I've been off early. And at this point, I'm kind of holding out for when they put up a dud. Islanders should crush them. Yeah. All right. Werenski, the power play 1 guy. So it's difficult because I like Seth Jones better as a defenseman, but you're paying $1,400 and no power play time with the 3 best skaters. So that's tough. Werenski just kind of the obvious value there, and I think I'm just going to eat it with him when I go with 4-mans on Columbus. And then probably nothing on the Blackhawks side for me in any big way. If I was going to a guy, I'd probably be Gustafsson. Because if this power play stays red hot, he is on the top unit. And that is a good unit, but I'm hoping they don't get 2 or 3 goals like we've seen in a lot of games recently on the power play. Only one team matters tonight. Do tell. Tampa. Wow. All right. Here we go. Preds and the Vegas Golden Knights. We've got Pekka Rinne expected to go against Marc-Andre Fleury. Implied totals for this one looks like 2.65 for Nashville, 2.85 for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is one where Steve, if Steve's still in chat, this is, I think, a pretty wide range of outcomes game. So, you are in chat. Pacioretty L3. Yeah. Not sure what's going on with that. They did have Peary up there yesterday. I'm finding out after I wrote up Vegas too. So a lot of talent on both sides. Top 6 for Vegas. They really, if you take out Peary and put in Pacioretty like they should, like they had been doing, that's a really good top 6. You've got a really good Nashville team as well. That's basically fully healthy. at this point. Turris back, obviously the top defenseman as well. Ekholm is the one that's not in. But Nashville worse on the road. That's kind of well known. They're just so good at home. They're just not as good defensively on the road. And then they've got this powerhouse line. Johansson, Forsberg, Arvidsson. Like I was talking about Carolina 1 numbers. They've got similar numbers. They're just really awesome. The issue here is Vegas doesn't really hard match. So it makes it a little bit tougher. For the most part, it's top 6 against top 6, but they will have games where they rotate and see, like, the top line will see the third line for quite a bit of time, and so that makes it a little bit difficult. I think just going with the Stastny, Tuck, and unfortunately Brandon Peary value. I really want to play Pacioretty, and I still think you can for 4,900, but Peary's a guy that's going to skate with Stastny and Tuck. So I think it's just a really good price on what I think is a pretty good line. They're going to hopefully avoid seeing extended time against Nashville 1. That's the line you really want to avoid. Fiala, Turris, and Smith haven't been the same this year. Fiala, Sissons, and Smith haven't been the same this year. I don't even know if this Nashville line is going to stick, honestly. They've been doing some weird stuff with every line outside of the top one. But yeah, I just really like this price for Vegas too. So it's kind of a price play and an ownership play. I don't know how popular they'll be as a filler, but I'm going to have a very good amount of them going to be comfortably overweight on Vegas 2 here. And I think if you're multi-entering tonight, you should have a handful of Nashville 1 lineups. They're, based on how the slate is setting up here, you've got a couple really good teams in Tampa, San Jose we're going to get to next. I mentioned Winnipeg. I think Columbus is in that category tonight, at least for me, and then Boston 1 too. We can't really forget about them. I think we're just going to see way too low of ownership on Nashville 1. And I say it all the time, like I don't love targeting or even like targeting teams going into Vegas. And sometimes I'll just cross teams off going into Vegas unless there's a really obvious price. But this, I'm kind of making an exception for Nashville 1 here just because of how good they've been. I think the pricing is actually okay. You've seen Forsberg and Johansson actually, and Arvidsson's price. I think it was $7,300 last game. They've all come down a few $100s. Makes it a little bit more affordable. And they should never be completely overlooked. And I think you might see that tonight. So they're a line that just, they have nuclear upside. And we've seen it a few times this year. So it's an ownership play and just a bet on talent play. I always X out Ryjo. Don't X out Ryan Johansson. He's not that big. He's not Brian Little. Boom. I know we've had this discussion before. You don't need to X out Ryan Johansson. You can play him. He's not going to score 2 goals a lot of the time, but he's very likely to be in on the assists with Forsberg and Arvidsson as his wingers. Go 30% on Carolina 1 or higher. I don't think you even need to go as high as 30%. So I would go less than 30%. I think you're going to be comfortably over the field at 20 or 25. But even that might be a little bit too much. You don't want to overextend yourself. There are a lot of spots tonight. But if you really like Carolina 1, then I think that's okay. I just don't know that I'm even going to 30%, and I really like them in general. Vote line scoring in the early. Defenseman here. Yossi is okay. Again, it's more of a price thing. Like, I'd rather save the $300, I think, and go to Shabbat. I think that's a little bit better of a matchup. And then I, realistically don't see myself playing a lot of Yossi with Johansson, Forsberg, and Arvidsson. So I'm probably not going to end up with a lot of Yossi there. Colin Miller's a guy that's pretty cheap, and he does correlate to Tuck and Stastny, and he's a guy that shoots quite a bit and sees 18 to 20 minutes a lot of the nights. So he's a guy we'll play at 3,600. I'd rather pay the $200 more and get to Ekman Larson, or $400 more and get to Chikrin. But if you are trying to correlate with your Vegas 2 stack, he's a decent way to go. A couple more games here. We've got the Canucks and the Sharks. Markstrom and terrible Martin Jones. 2.5 implied total for the Canucks. 4.0 it looks like for the Sharks. 6.5 total. Much of that going to the Sharks, obviously. I've now made a showdown lineup for the Avs game and made main slate tiers lineups. Yes, lineups. EMAC degenning some hockey. So, Stetcher. Are we really talking about Stetcher? All right. I like minutes as much as the next guy. We'll get to Stetcher in just a second. So I thought the Sharks would just pop off my model like crazy, and I'm getting some of them. Vancouver's not a team that my numbers necessarily love, and I even think you can go to the Pettersson, Besser, Levo line at low ownership here. That's a really good price for them, and I don't have the Sharks as being that bad of a matchup. Now it hurts that Carlson's back, so if you look at their recent numbers, they're probably not as good. Carlson's a really good defensive defenseman as well as offensive defenseman. So I'm a little bit torn there, but I think you can have Vancouver 1 here, and that's really the only line I would go to on Vancouver. On the Sharks, it's tough. You've got so much talent on this Couture, Meyer, Pavelski line, just so much talent in the top 6, and then you've got Burns and Carlson. I like San Jose 1. I think I prefer them overall. I have them as more raw points than the second line. Kane's price is really getting up there. Hurdle's price is really getting up there as well. So it's tough for me to, you still save a little bit with San Jose too, and they've been awesome, and maybe even see the better matchups, but I'm not even sure the Horvat line is the better matchup. So if you see Couture a lot of the time against Elias Pettersson and Besser, I think that's probably the more fun matchup. So those are 2 lines I want. What you're seeing as the top 2 here. And more people have been on San Jose too because of the recent results. And recent is, they've been going off for a month straight basically. And they've started to get higher owned because of their price and such. So I think I side with San Jose 1 tonight. If you really like the spot, you can absolutely play both of them in separate lineups. You can Josh stack them if you'd like. It doesn't really matter. The Sharks are so deep up top. Defenseman, you've got Burns or Carlson. I haven't seen Carlson's price just yet. Does anybody have his price? I guess I can look that up really quick. What's he at here? 58? Wow. So that's going to be tough, right? When I ran the crunch before the show, when Carlson was not confirmed, I had about 70% Brent Burns. It will not be 70%. It might be more of a split, like 40-40 between him and Carlson, but they're going to end up close together. Burns higher raw points, of course, but it's $1,200 to get down to Carlson, who's going to play a bunch in the power play and such. It definitely is a downgrade to Burns' minutes as well. There's only so many minutes to go around. You can't have Burns playing 30 minutes. Carlson's probably going to be the more popular guy because of his price, because he pairs better with some of these Sharks lines. I think they're both awesome options. And then it's a little bit of a bump down to Vlasic, but at 3,300, I still think he's okay as a punt. Huge total here for the Sharks. Over 4, you don't often see that in NHL DFS. Stetcher. Let me reiterate, Rajo is my 3rd option from that line. Agreed. Yeah, Rajo is the 3rd option on that line. But there's 2 pretty good options that you're taking over him. All right, so Stetcher, he played 31 minutes last game. He got you an assist, 3 shots on goal for the game before that. That's okay. He's 3,100 to hit. Like, you can play him. You can absolutely play him. I don't know that he's really going to kill me if you don't, though. So, good price. He's not an auto play by any means, even at that price. He's just, if I end up with $3,100 and he fits, okay. If not, I'm not going to lose sleep over not playing Troy Stecher. So, you guys can get off my back and chat. I don't care that he played 31 minutes. I mean, I do care. I think it's always nice to have a guy that has a little bit of a built-in floor, but he's not lighting the world on fire with shot attempts or anything like that. Then that would really catch my eye. If we had a $2,500 Keith Yandel situation, that'd be a little bit different. I'll have 100% of Troy Stecher tonight. Well, you play one lineup, right, Jason? So that's fine if he fits. Ooh. All right. News coming in that Malcolm Subban is starting for Vegas. So let's go back to this really quick. Subban starting. All right, well. So Nashville 1's not going to be unowned now. They're still going to be, in general, overlooked. Subban, big downgrade compared to Marc-Andre Fleury. So, I mean, it makes me like Nashville 1 a little bit more. But yeah, now you're not going to get Nashville 1 at 3%. You might get him at 5%, which is perfectly fine with me. Yeah, we talked about Burns and Carlson. Let's move it on to the last one here. Bruins, Kings. We've got a 3 implied total for the Bruins, 2.5 for the Kings. All right. Boston on the back-to-back. Kings are usually a cross-off on big slates for me. They just don't really spark fear into me. Jeff Carter back with Lipsick and Toffoli. That's actually an okay line. They just don't really generate much. So I don't know if Carter's even fully healthy. The question is, do you go back to Boston 1? Kind of a crazy price. They let us down last night. And you're just not getting a discount on them. So I've got Columbus 1 ahead of them. I've got Winnipeg 1 ahead of them. And I think I might even go Nashville 1 ahead of them. So you're going to get them pretty unowned. If you want to take a stab on them in a few lineups, that's okay. It's never a bad play to play Bergeron and Marchand. They're awesome. So I don't want to just say don't play Boston 1 here. I don't think that's wise. If they project out better for you than they project out for me, then go ahead, play Boston 1, win all the money. I'm really not worried about the Kopitar matchup either. So it's not a matchup thing. It's more of a price thing and just kind of opportunity cost of getting a decent amount of Boston 1 here. Krug is also overpriced at $5,900. I don't think I want anything on the Kings side. The Bruins are generally a team I don't like to target against, especially with bad teams like the Kings. Fontenberg, actually. He's been shooting quite a bit as of late. Not seeing a million minutes or anything, but he's getting a couple shots on goal here and there, but the shot attempts they've been up. I noticed this yesterday. And he's seeing 18, 19, 20-ish minutes. So not the worst punt in the world, Oscar Fantenberg. He's no Troy Stecher, but he might be close. All right, what do you guys have for me? Anything else before we get out of here? Kind of been going pretty long here, hour 15, but we got to some good questions right at the start of the stream. So if you got any last minute questions, feel free. How is the early slate going for everyone if you chose to play it? Did I hear downgrade to Burns? What do you mean downgrade to Burns? Nashville 2, nah, I don't think Nashville 2 for me. I think if I'm going to Nashville, I don't think it's a great spot. If I'm going to Nashville, I'm probably playing just their best lines, or their best line, and that is their top line by a very wide margin. If I'm playing Cooch, Stam, Point, do I just go with those three, or do I add Palat, TJ with them? I mean, it depends who else you want to play, right? If you just want to go all in on Tampa and try to like do a line 1, line 2 hybrid stack, then you could play Yanni Gourde with them, or yeah, you could play Palat. He's on the power play, he doesn't really do a ton, but maybe Gourde or Palat. I think that's okay. Favorite Nashville defender? It's always Yossi. Almost always Yossi. Is there a show later? There's not. We usually do the show earlier on Saturdays. Have most of the news at this point. Just waiting on a few things. Did they confirm that Peary is on line 2 in lieu of Pacioretty? Did anybody see that? Is Letang playing? Assuming that's sarcastic. Whoa. Looks like I'm doing pretty well in the early. Why am I? Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. Never mind. I've got the nuts. Let's go. The Patrick line. Wow. Okay, so that's kind of the line you need. Scott Lawton had a goal at 2.9%. Well, there you have it. TJ hasn't been doing much. Tyler Johnson hasn't been doing much. So that might be the guy I leave off. If I'm playing one lineup, what's the best line to stack? That's a tough question. It depends, I think, what type of tournament you're playing in. In general, I think if you're not worried about ownership, I think you play Winnipeg 1. If you want to be different, somewhat different, Columbus 1 or Nashville 1, I think would be probably my next two. And you could probably go Islanders 1 with any of those if you want a full double stack. Carter versus his future team. Could be. Could be. Boom. All right. We did get a good crew. As Boom was saying earlier, if you guys did enjoy this video, please like the video. It does help us out. All you NBA guys, if you liked it, feel free to come back these next few days. I don't know if there will be a show tomorrow. If there is, I likely will not be on. We'll have projections and all the premium tools. Osmo will have his rankings for tomorrow's slate. My projections will be updated probably a couple more times before we get to the main slate tonight. And we've got the Stacks articles that's free. Feel free to tell your friends about it if they want to make a lineup. If you are a premium NBA member, you have access to my projections, access to Osmo's rankings, player and stack rankings, and then cheat sheets also. So, good luck, guys. Hit me up in the premium chat. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like. Premium chat's probably the better place to catch me. Mostly looking for news on Twitter these days. But yeah, play some of these good tournaments. Get your friends to play. Get your wife to play, or husband, or best friend or girlfriend. Get people to play them, because it'd be cool to have some big NHL contests. So hopefully they continue. Hopefully you guys take down the big one tonight. And I'll see you back on Monday. It'll be me and Nolan, almost positive, for the duration of the next week. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks for chatting. Helps me do my job a little bit easier. So good luck, guys. See you on Monday.